Earth had long been a place of peace, technology, and progress. The planet had seen many advancements in science, from medical breakthroughs to space exploration. Humanity was not the most powerful force in the galaxy, but it was growing stronger every year, reaching new frontiers. People lived their lives, unaware of what was to come, until one fateful day when everything changed. On a bright morning, the skies above Earth were filled with something that had never been seen before, a massive fleet of ships, more than anyone could count, entering the atmosphere from deep space. These ships were unlike anything Earth's best scientists had ever imagined. Their shapes were sharp, their metallic surfaces glinted in the sunlight like polished steel, and their engines emitted a low, deep hum that sent a chill through the air. It was a sound that none could ignore. The ships belonged to the Zorth Empire, a name few had ever heard of before. They were an ancient and powerful alien civilization that had conquered countless planets. The Zorth believed themselves to be the superior race in the galaxy, and they had an unspoken rule. All civilizations must bow to them or be destroyed. This was their way of life, and their empire stretched far and wide, taking over one world after another. Now, their attention was turned to Earth. As the Zorth fleet hovered over Earth, they made their presence known by broadcasting a clear and simple message. The transmission came through on every screen, every radio, every communication system on Earth, even if it was not being actively used. The voice was cold, commanding, and made everyone on Earth feel small. People of Earth, this is the Zorth Empire. You will submit to our rule. Join us, and you will be protected. Refuse, and you will face destruction. The message echoed across every nation, spreading fear and confusion. People gathered in streets, in homes, in government offices. News stations were flooded with questions. Was this some kind of elaborate hoax? Could it be real? But the ships, the incredible size of the fleet, were undeniably real. World leaders held an emergency summit. The President of Earth, the leader of the global coalition, called upon the military, the scientists, and all the nations of the world to come together. The Earth was united under one flag for the first time in history, but unity did not stop the fear. This was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. The Zorth Empire was not just another army. It was a force unlike anything Earth could match. Their technology was far more advanced, their fleet massive and powerful. The meeting was tense, and the world leaders debated for hours. Some argued that submission was the only way to protect the people of Earth. Others said that humanity could never kneel before an alien empire. There was no clear answer, only the sense that time was running out. Earth's leaders, while fearful, knew one thing for certain. Surrender would mean the loss of everything that made them human. Finally, the decision was made. Earth would not bow down. The message that would be sent back to the Empire was simple, but powerful. No. It was a single word. A word that would change everything. A word that showed the galaxy that Earth was not a planet to be conquered easily. The Zorth Empire did not react with understanding. Instead, they saw it as a challenge, a defiance they could not tolerate. Their arrogance was too great, and they had never been told no by any civilization they had encountered. Earth was now their enemy, and they would make an example of it. Hours later, the skies darkened as the Zorth fleet launched their first attack. The force was overwhelming, and the speed with which they struck was like nothing the Earth had ever experienced. The cities of Earth, once thriving, now found themselves under a storm of destruction. Lasers, powerful enough to reduce buildings to rubble, rained down from the sky. Earth's defenses, though strong, were no match for the Empire's superior technology. The world was plunged into chaos as panic spread across every corner of the globe. People ran through streets, seeking shelter as the attacks continued without warning. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, Earth's leaders refused to give in. The military launched counterattacks, but they were poorly coordinated and ineffective against the might of the Zorth. But one thing was clear: The battle was far from over. The Zoreth Empire thought they had won, but they underestimated humanity's resilience. They had underestimated Earth's willingness to fight for its survival. And so the fight for Earth began, not with immediate victory, but with a refusal to surrender. The planet was on the brink of destruction, but something had awakened within humanity. The spark of resistance had been lit. The battle for Earth had only just begun. Earth had never faced an enemy like the Zoreth Empire. The moment Earth refused to kneel, the alien forces showed their wrath. Their response was swift, and it shook humanity to its core. The first wave of attacks came without warning. For days, there had been silence from the Zoreth fleet, and many on Earth hoped that the Empire had reconsidered their decision. But then, at dawn, the skies above Earth filled with bright streaks of light. Lasers, faster than the human eye could track, rained down from the massive fleet overhead, cutting through the clouds and striking the cities below. It was chaos. The powerful beams hit Earth's major cities, reducing them to rubble in mere seconds. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled, and entire sections of cities disappeared into fiery clouds of dust and ash. The first blow had been catastrophic. Earth's defense systems, while advanced, were no match for the Empire's superior technology. Human military forces tried to fight back, but their weapons were like toys against the alien firepower. The Empire had far surpassed anything humanity had ever built. As Earth's cities burned, the world watched in horror. People in every corner of the globe saw their homes, their loved ones, and their future disintegrate before their eyes. Panic spread across every country. Governments tried to organize, but their communications were shattered, and their response was disjointed. It was clear that Earth was not ready for such an attack, and the invaders seemed unstoppable. Despite the destruction, there were no signs of a complete surrender. Earth's leaders, though shaken, refused to give up. The President of Earth and the leaders of the United Nations called for calm. A worldwide broadcast was made, urging the citizens of Earth to stand strong. They made it clear that surrendering was not an option. The battle had begun, and humanity would not let its future be wiped out without a fight. But as the attacks continued, it became clear just how weak Earth's defenses were in the face of the Empire's power. The military launched counterattacks, but they were mostly futile. Fighter jets were torn apart by the Empire's shielded warships, and missile strikes simply bounced off their armor. Even Earth's most advanced anti-aircraft systems couldn't touch the Zoreth ships that hovered high above. The Empire's superiority was undeniable. Yet, in the midst of all this destruction, there was a small glimmer of hope. A group of scientists and engineers who had been working in secret for years were not only aware of the Empire's technology, but had been preparing for the worst. For years, they had studied an ancient alien artifact that had been discovered on the moon. An object that had long puzzled scientists. It wasn't much, just a small device, but it seemed to have strange energy properties. It was as if it could disrupt the technology of the Zoreth Empire itself. The device, however, had never been fully understood, until now. As Earth's defense forces scrambled to respond to the onslaught, a team of these scientists managed to unlock the artifact's potential. In a hidden underground lab, they activated it, praying that it would work. The first test was small, an isolated burst of energy aimed at a nearby Zoreth warship. The results were astonishing. The ship, which had been hovering high above a major city, suddenly dropped from the sky as if its engines had failed. It crashed into the ocean below with a deafening roar, sending waves crashing against the shores. It wasn't just a lucky shot. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The artifact had worked. It had disabled the Empire's technology, even if only for a short time. But it was a breakthrough. The news spread quickly, and the hope it sparked was electric. Earth's leaders, now aware that they had a weapon that could disrupt the Empire's control, began to plan their next moves. The key question was, could this technology be used on a larger scale? Could it turn the tide of the war? Meanwhile, the Zoreth Empire, sensing something was wrong, launched a counteroffensive of their own. They began to target Earth's military bases, trying to eliminate any resistance. But the humans were not going down without a fight. The resistance began to form in every country. Small pockets of fighters, ordinary people rising up against the invaders. They began to fight back in any way they could, using makeshift weapons, sabotage, and whatever else they could find. Still, Earth was far from winning. The Zorath Empire was relentless, and their ships returned with even greater force. But humanity was no longer helpless. The discovery of the artifact had given the people of Earth something to cling to, something to fight for. As the world recovered from the devastation, the resistance began to grow stronger. It was then that a young military officer, Captain Laura Harris, became a key figure in the resistance. She had survived the first wave of destruction, and now she was leading efforts to coordinate the global defense. She was determined to turn the tables on the Zorath Empire. With the help of the scientists who had unlocked the artifact's power, she began to devise a new strategy: to use the artifact's energy waves against the Empire's fleet on a much larger scale. But that would take time. Time that Earth didn't have. The battle was far from over, and every day the Empire grew more determined to crush humanity's spirit. Yet Earth's refusal to surrender, despite the overwhelming odds, was beginning to form something stronger: resistance, unity, and hope. As Earth's leaders prepared for the next phase of the war, one thing was certain: the Zorath Empire had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity's ability to fight for its survival. The destruction caused by the Zorath Empire's first wave of attacks left Earth reeling, but it also ignited something far more powerful: resistance. Though the Empire had come to crush them, the people of Earth refused to lie down and accept defeat. Everywhere, from the burning cities to the quiet villages, the human spirit began to rise. It started with small pockets of fighters, people who had no military training but an unyielding desire to protect their world. Civilians, scientists, and engineers alike gathered, determined to make a stand. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for the future of their children, for their homes, for their way of life. In every nation, small rebellions began to form. Underground movements began to unite, though they knew they could not match the Empire's might with force alone. What they had, however, was something the Zorath had not counted on: ingenuity and an unbreakable will to fight back. One of the first signs of hope came from the Resistance's use of the alien artifact. Scientists, engineers, and military officers worked together to reverse engineer its technology. Soon, the Resistance had discovered how to harness the artifact's power. It was far from perfect, but it was enough to disrupt the Empire's advanced systems long enough to make an impact. They used it to disable Zorath communication networks, temporarily disable warships, and sabotage supply lines. Captain Laura Harris, once a young officer caught in the chaos of the initial attacks, had risen to become one of the most powerful leaders of the Resistance. Her strategic mind and leadership skills made her the perfect person to guide Earth's response to the Empire. She had seen the worst of the destruction and vowed never to give up. Laura's first major victory came in the form of a surprise strike on a Zorath supply base. The Resistance knew they could not win in direct combat, so they relied on sabotage and guerrilla tactics. A group of Resistance fighters, under Laura's guidance, snuck into the supply base, planting the alien disruptor technology in critical areas. When the device activated, it crippled the base's operations, forcing the Empire to send reinforcements to recover the situation. The Resistance fighters, knowing they couldn't stay, disappeared into the forests, leaving the Empire scrambling. This victory, though small in comparison to the scale of the war, was a beacon of hope for humanity. The message was clear: the Zorath Empire could be beaten. It wasn't easy, but the first signs of resistance were taking hold. People everywhere began to fight back. Farmers used their equipment to set traps for Zorath patrols. Civilians armed themselves with makeshift weapons and coordinated strikes against the Empire's supply lines. People who had once lived quiet, peaceful lives now found themselves in a battle for survival. and they fought like it. As the weeks passed, the resistance grew bolder. More and more groups joined the fight, and the strikes against the Empire became larger and more organized. Yet the Empire was not so easily deterred. They launched a series of counterattacks, trying to crush the resistance before it could gain any real momentum. The Zorath Empire had advanced weaponry, fleets, and technologies that humanity could barely comprehend. But what they didn't have was the determination that burned in the hearts of Earth's people. One of the greatest successes of the resistance came when they captured a Zorath warship that had been left disabled by a malfunction in the Empire's systems. The ship was crippled by one of the disruptor devices, but it still had valuable technology on board. The resistance managed to board the warship, and with the help of their engineers, they worked day and night to study its systems. It was a huge risk, but the reward was immeasurable. Using the technology from the Zorath ship, Earth's engineers were able to create new weapons, energy shields, disruptor blasts, and advanced communication systems that could not be easily traced. These new technologies, though still crude, allowed Earth's forces to fight back with more power than ever before. The Zorath Empire, who had once viewed Earth as an insignificant planet, now found themselves facing a much bigger challenge than they had anticipated. The more they tried to crush the resistance, the more it grew. With every city that burned, every person who fell, more rose to take their place. Humanity was no longer afraid. At the heart of this resistance was a growing alliance of diverse factions from across the globe. Countries that had once been rivals now stood side by side, working together as one. People put aside old differences to fight a common enemy. There was a sense of unity that Earth had never experienced before, and it was something the Zorath Empire had never seen. They had underestimated Earth's ability to come together when faced with impossible odds. The resistance also found new allies in other parts of the galaxy. Some of the Zorath Empire's oppressed colonies, worlds that had been enslaved by the Zorath for centuries, heard about Earth's fight and secretly reached out to offer support. Earth was not alone. The galaxy began to watch as Earth, once a small and defenseless planet, became a symbol of resistance. Though the Empire's strikes were still powerful, humanity's resolve was unshakable. The people of Earth no longer saw themselves as weak or helpless. They were learning, adapting, and growing stronger every day. They were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the war for Earth grew more intense. But one thing was certain. Humanity had begun to show the Zorath Empire that they were a force to be reckoned with. And the Zorath had made a mistake. Earth had refused to kneel. And now the entire galaxy would know the price of underestimating humanity. The resistance was growing. The people of Earth were no longer sitting idle, waiting for the end. They had found hope, and with it, the strength to fight back. Yet, the Zorath Empire was not a foe that would simply surrender. They were relentless, and as Earth's resistance continued to grow, the Empire began to escalate their efforts to crush it once and for all. The Zorath Empire, still convinced of their superiority, had underestimated Earth's will to survive. They had expected humanity to crumble under the weight of their attacks. But the world had proven resilient. What the Empire had failed to account for was the unity and resourcefulness of Earth's people. Each time the Empire struck, the people of Earth responded with even greater determination. In the weeks following the Resistance's first significant victory, the Zorath Empire launched a devastating counterattack. They sent their most powerful warships to Earth's orbit, with orders to obliterate the Resistance and break the will of the planet. These warships were massive, each one larger than any ship humanity had ever seen, armed with weapons capable of vaporizing entire cities in a single strike. The Resistance had no illusions about their ability to match the Zorath in direct combat. They knew they had to rely on their intelligence, their agility, and their knowledge of the terrain. The battle was no longer just about survival. It had become a battle of wits, with Earth using every advantage they could find to outmaneuver the Empire. Captain Laura Harris, now a key figure in the resistance, understood that the time had come to take the fight to the Empire. She and her team had spent weeks gathering intelligence on the Zoreth fleet. They had discovered a weakness, an unguarded supply route that the Empire had been using to bring reinforcements from their distant colonies. If they could disrupt this supply line, they could delay the Empire's reinforcements and weaken their attack force. The operation was risky. The Resistance had only a handful of ships capable of making the journey to the Empire's stronghold, and they had to strike quickly before the Empire could respond. But Laura was determined. She knew that every day the Resistance delayed the Empire was another day humanity could fight back. As the Resistance prepared for the mission, they faced internal struggles. Some believed it was too dangerous. Others were hesitant to take such a bold step. But Laura's leadership had earned her the trust of her comrades, and she convinced them that they had no choice. The Empire would not stop until Earth was gone. It was time to act. The strike began at midnight, under the cover of darkness. A small fleet of resistance ships, carrying a group of the bravest soldiers and engineers, slipped past the Zoreth's outer defenses, using the artifact's technology to cloak their ships from the Empire's sensors. The mission was going smoothly, until they got too close to the Empire's core system. The Zoreth had set up traps, anticipating such an attack. Suddenly, alarms blared. The resistance ships were detected. It was a trap. The Empire's warships, sleek and deadly, descended upon them. A fierce battle erupted in the void of space. The resistance ships, though agile, were outgunned. The Empire's weapons fired faster than anything Earth had ever encountered, and the small resistance fleet was quickly overwhelmed. But the resistance did not give up. They fought back with everything they had. Despite the heavy odds, they managed to disable a few of the Empire's smaller ships, causing chaos in their ranks. Yet, it wasn't enough. The Empire's warships were closing in, and the resistance had no choice but to retreat. They had lost the battle, but they had bought precious time. Back on Earth, the news of the failed mission was met with heavy hearts, but it also strengthened their resolve. They had been outmatched, yes, but the resistance was not about to give up. The fight for Earth was far from over. The Empire, enraged by this unexpected resistance, decided to make an example of Earth. They were no longer simply attacking military targets. Now, they aimed to crush the morale of humanity. The Zoreth's next move was brutal: planetary bombardments. Entire cities were obliterated in a single strike, and the atmosphere began to fill with thick, toxic clouds. Earth's climate was disrupted, crops withered, and millions of people were displaced. However, even in the face of these horrors, humanity's spirit remained unbroken. Cities lay in ruins, but new centers of resistance began to emerge from the ashes. People found refuge in underground bunkers, working tirelessly to repair what had been broken, and building new weapons to fight back. The resistance had learned from their mistakes, and they began to rally together in ways that were more coordinated and effective than ever before. Laura Harris, ever the strategist, was determined to ensure that Earth would never kneel to the Empire. She led her teams with an unshakable belief that victory was still possible. Despite the vastness of the Zoreth fleet and the overwhelming power they wielded, Earth's resistance began to gain small but significant victories. The first victory came when they successfully retook a small colony on Mars that had been captured by the Empire. The Zoreth, focused on Earth, had left the colony relatively unguarded. The Resistance's surprise attack was swift and efficient, and it sent a powerful message to the Empire. Earth would not be easily broken. Though the war was far from over, the tide was beginning to turn. The Zoreth Empire, which had once seen Earth as nothing more than a small, insignificant planet, was now facing a resistance far stronger than they had imagined. Humanity's refusal to kneel had turned the war into a battle of endurance. The Empire had underestimated Earth's strength, and they were beginning to realize the true cost of their conquest. As the people of Earth prepared for the next stage of the war, they knew the greatest challenge was yet to come. But one thing was certain: The Zoreth Empire had awakened a force that they could never defeat, a force fueled by hope, unity, and the unyielding will to survive. The Zoreth Empire had underestimated Earth once, and they would not make the same mistake again. They had already crushed cities, shattered families, and poisoned the very air of the planet. Yet Earth's spirit remained unbroken. The Resistance had learned from its previous defeats, and now it was preparing for something far greater. The people of Earth were ready to show the Empire what humanity was truly capable of. After the brutal planetary bombardments, Earth was no longer the world it had once been. Many cities lay in ruins, and the climate had shifted into an unpredictable state. Yet Earth's people had adapted. They took refuge in underground bunkers, rebuilt from the ashes, and fought back with everything they had. Despite the Empire's might, the heart of Earth's resistance burned brighter than ever. Captain Laura Harris, now leading the largest faction of the Resistance, had become more than just a symbol of defiance. She was a beacon of hope, a reminder that the fight was far from over. She had witnessed the destruction and loss, but she had also seen something the Zoreth had not anticipated: humanity's incredible resilience. Under Laura's leadership, the Resistance began to organize on a scale the Empire could no longer ignore. They had retaken Mars, and now they were focused on disrupting the Empire's foothold on Earth. It was no longer just about survival, it was about victory. In every corner of the planet, the Resistance made their presence felt. From the forests of the Amazon to the icy plains of Antarctica, groups of fighters united, sharing knowledge, weapons, and resources. Even nations that had once been divided began to put aside their differences. Countries that had previously been rivals now worked together, understanding that the survival of Earth depended on their unity. But the Zoreth Empire was not idle. They sent wave after wave of warships, each one more powerful than the last. Their strategy had shifted from direct destruction to trying to eliminate the leadership of the Resistance. They knew that if they could take down Laura Harris and her key commanders, the rest of the Resistance would crumble. But the Empire's obsession with the leaders of Earth's Resistance would be their downfall. Laura knew this would happen. She had prepared for it. The Resistance had hidden their main headquarters in a remote area, and any attack on it would be met with a fierce response. The Zoreth believed they could eliminate the heart of the Resistance, but they had underestimated the lengths to which Earth's people were willing to go to protect their home. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and Laura had one final plan in mind. She had learned from the Empire's technology, studying their weapons, their tactics, and their fleets. The Resistance now had a weapon of their own, one that could match the Empire's power and give Earth a fighting chance to push back. It was a device, powered by the same technology that had been used to disrupt the Empire's ships in the early days of the war. This new weapon, however, was far more powerful. It was capable of disabling entire fleets of Zoreth warships, rendering their advanced weapons useless. But there was a catch. The device required a great deal of energy to function, and using it would drain Earth's power reserves significantly. It was a risk, but one that had to be taken. The Zoreth fleet, now gathering for an all-out assault, was already in Earth's orbit. They had no idea what was coming. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them to the growing power of Earth's Resistance, and now, at the heart of the storm, humanity was preparing to strike back. Captain Harris stood before her team. Eyes steady, face hard with determination. "We've fought this long. We're not stopping now. This is our chance. We can turn the tide, but we have to act together. We take down their fleet, and we take back our planet." The device was ready, and with the Zoreth fleet in position, the Resistance launched their attack. A small group of elite fighters, equipped with the best technology Earth had developed, was sent to deploy the weapon. The fight for Earth's survival had reached a new level. The Empire's warships, once invincible, now found themselves struggling against the waves of energy that the Resistance unleashed. The powerful disruptor field sent shockwaves through the Zoreth fleet, causing their weapons to malfunction and their ships to lose control. The Zoreth, unable to counter the technology, found themselves in a panic. For the first time, Earth was fighting on equal terms. As the battle raged above Earth's surface, the people below continued their fight. In every corner of the world, resistance fighters moved in coordination, taking advantage of the chaos in the Empire's fleet. The disruption of the Zoreth's warships was a game-changer, and the momentum began to shift in humanity's favor. But despite the victories, Earth's people knew the Empire would not give up easily. The Zoreth were ruthless, and they would continue to fight, looking for any weakness they could exploit. Yet, for the first time in the war, the balance of power was no longer one-sided. Earth had shown that it could fight back, and the Empire had learned the hard way that they could not break humanity's will. Captain Laura Harris watched as the tide of battle turned, knowing that this was just the beginning. The Zoreth might have been pushed back, but the war was far from over. Humanity had won a crucial victory, but they still had a long road ahead. The Empire would come back stronger, angrier, and more determined to finish what they had started. But now, Earth knew that victory was within reach. The Resistance had proven that they could stand against the Empire, that they could fight back and win. And with every passing day, Earth's resolve grew stronger. The Empire had struck hard, but the heart of Earth's people was still beating, and it was not going to stop. The once unshakable Zoreth Empire had been pushed back, if only slightly. For the first time in the war, their fleets had been forced to retreat from Earth's orbit, leaving behind the wreckage of their once mighty ships. The Resistance's new weapon, the disruptor device, had leveled the playing field. Hope began to spread like wildfire across the planet. But victory had come at a cost. The deployment of the disruptor weapon had drained Earth's energy reserves to critical levels. Cities that had been holding on by a thread were now plunged into darkness, relying solely on emergency systems. Food supplies were running low, and the atmosphere, still scared by the Empire's bombardments, made farming nearly impossible. Captain Laura Harris stood in the command room of the Resistance headquarters, surrounded by her team. Their faces reflected the same mix of exhaustion and determination that she felt. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. "We've given them something to fear," Laura began, her voice steady but firm. "But they'll be back. And when they come, they'll bring everything they have to finish us. We can't let this victory make us complacent." The Resistance had learned one crucial thing. The Zoreth Empire, despite their power, was not invincible. They bled just like anyone else. And now, Earth had shown them that humanity was not an easy target. In the days following the battle, the Resistance began to regroup. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair and replicate the disruptor device, improving its efficiency and finding ways to power it without crippling Earth's resources. Scientists, using salvaged Zoreth technology, developed prototypes of new weapons and defense systems. And the people of Earth, inspired by the Resistance's success, rallied like never before. Among these new developments was a discovery that changed the course of the war. In the wreckage of one of the Zoreth warships, Resistance engineers uncovered a piece of critical information: the coordinates to the Zoreth Empire's main supply depot in a nearby star system. This depot was the heart of the Empire's operations in this sector of the galaxy. If the Resistance could destroy it, they could cripple the Empire's ability to maintain their invasion of Earth. The plan was ambitious, almost reckless. The Resistance had only a handful of ships capable of making the journey, and the depot would undoubtedly be heavily guarded. But the alternative, waiting for the Empire to return with a stronger fleet, was not an option. "This is our chance," Laura said during the strategy meeting. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much but refused to give up. "If we hit them where it hurts, we buy ourselves time. Time to rebuild, to strengthen, and to push them back even further." The mission was greenlit, and a select team of Resistance fighters was chosen for the task. Among them was Lieutenant Marcus Kane, a skilled pilot and one of Laura's most trusted allies. Kane had been instrumental in some of the Resistance's earlier victories, and he volunteered without hesitation. The strike team departed under the cover of night, their ships equipped with the latest cloaking technology. The journey to the Zoreth supply depot was tense. Every second felt like an eternity as they navigated through space, avoiding Zoreth patrols and debris fields from previous battles. When they arrived, the sight before them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The depot was massive, a floating fortress surrounded by smaller outposts and defensive platforms. Zoreth warships patrolled the perimeter, their sleek designs radiating menace. The resistance team knew they couldn't win in a direct confrontation. Their plan relied on stealth and precision. Using the disruptor technology, they disabled the depot's outer defenses long enough to slip through the cracks. Once inside, the team deployed charges at key points within the structure, targeting fuel reserves, ammunition storage, and communication hubs. But the Zoreth were not entirely unprepared. Alarms blared as the resistance team worked against the clock. Drones and soldiers swarmed the depot, engaging the team in intense firefights. Marcus Kane led the defense, his skill as a pilot matched by his ability to think quickly under pressure. Despite heavy resistance, the team completed their mission. The charges were detonated in a coordinated blast that tore through the depot, leaving it in ruins. As the resistance ships fled the scene, they watched from a safe distance as the depot erupted in a massive explosion, sending shockwaves across the star system. The victory was bittersweet. Several members of the strike team did not make it back, and the loss weighed heavily on those who survived. But their sacrifice had not been in vain. The destruction of the depot was a devastating blow to the Zoreth Empire, one that would take them months, if not years, to recover from. Back on Earth, the news of the mission's success reignited hope. The people of Earth had struck the Empire where it hurt the most, proving once again that they were a force to be reckoned with. But Laura Harris knew the war was far from over. The Empire would retaliate, and their response would be brutal. Yet, for the first time, humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. As Earth's resistance prepared for the battles ahead, one thing was clear. The Zoreth Empire had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would be their downfall. The Zoreth Empire was shaken, its once unyielding grip on the galaxy slipping as Earth's resistance gained strength. The destruction of their supply depot had crippled the Empire's ability to maintain their invasion of Earth. For the first time in the war, the Zoreth were forced to reconsider their strategy. But they were not a people to back down easily. The Empire had suffered losses before and come back stronger. Now they prepared for their final strike, a campaign that would end the rebellion once and for all. They gathered their remaining fleets and made their way toward Earth, intending to make the planet an example of what happened to those who dared to challenge them. Captain Laura Harris, however, was ready for them. She had spent the past months preparing the resistance for this moment. They had won battles, but this was the final test. Earth's survival depended on their ability to strike back with everything they had left. "Now is the time," Laura said, addressing the commanders of the resistance in their underground headquarters. "We've fought to stay alive, but today we fight for victory. We will not let Earth fall." The resistance forces, now more organized and united than ever, took their positions. They had rebuilt their fleet using salvage Zoreth technology, and while their numbers were smaller than the Empire's, their resolve was stronger. For every man and woman who fought for Earth, this was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a fight to reclaim their world, their future. In the heart of the resistance, a new weapon had been developed, a massive shield generator capable of withstanding the Empire's most powerful attacks. It was humanity's last line of defense, and it had been constructed in secret. The hope was that the shield would hold long enough to give the resistance the chance they needed to strike back at the heart of the Empire. As the Zoreth fleet approached Earth, the people of the planet held their breath. The final battle was about to begin. Families huddled together in underground shelters, while soldiers prepared for the fight of their lives. The sky above Earth darkened as the Zoreth ships entered orbit. Their warships, massive and menacing, loomed in the heavens, ready to unleash their full power. It was clear to everyone that this would be a battle for the future of humanity. But the Resistance had a plan. The shield generator was activated, and its powerful energy field encased Earth, deflecting the first wave of attacks from the Empire's fleet. The Zorath's weapons, capable of obliterating entire cities, bounced harmlessly off the shield. It was a victory for Earth, but the Zorath were quick to adapt. They unleashed a second, more powerful barrage of fire, aiming to break through the shield and lay waste to the planet. The Resistance fought back with everything they had. Fighters darted through the air, engaging Zorath warships in a series of dogfights above Earth's surface. On the ground, Resistance forces defended key cities, knowing that the shield would not hold forever. Every soldier, every fighter, every person who had joined the Resistance knew this could be their final stand. Laura led the charge, coordinating the attack from Earth's underground command center. She had come a long way from the first days of the war, when the Resistance was small and fractured. Now, they were a unified force, and their determination was palpable. With each passing moment, Earth's hope grew stronger.